Alright guys, I think we're live. As usual, please tell me if you have any kind of audio or visual issues, and I'll see what I can do about it on my end. But I think we're actually starting on time for once, which happens once in a blue moon. Probably should bet on the lottery at this point. That's how rare it is. Hold on just a moment here. There you go. I see me over here. You see me wiping my nose disgustingly and snorting. We'll edit that in post. I think we're live. All right, there you go. Audio. So now I confirmed it for myself. Greetings, my name is Nick. This is Board Game Brawl, and this is our weekly Q&A. This is where you ask me questions, I give you answers in the best way I possibly can, which means sometimes not at all. Which one of those situations of where if you don't have something smart to say, don't say anything at all. That's not true. So, state of the channel is that, of course, there was like no output this week at all, which sucked. I did an unboxing on Sunday and that was it. And the truth of the matter is just that the mind and spirit are willing, the body is weak. I was extremely exhausted this week. I had a lot of long work hours. I had a business expo right in the middle of the week that really ruined everything. Just a lot of stuff to take care of in my personal life, and it was just like, I can't do anything this week, which does suck. I mean, obviously, reviews are backing up, out the door. Previews are backing up as well, so I have a lot of work to do, and I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to hopefully work the rest of the weekend on the channel and get as much output out as I can. Weekends are the time that you're going to see the most output because it's just the most solid blocks of time that I have. The rest of the week is work, my game group, random stuff with friends. It's the best I could do. So hopefully hang in there. We'll get some more content going on very, very soon. Trust me, I don't like it either. But let's go ahead and get to the questions. Now, of course, I peeked in on the Q&A yesterday, and YouTube ate the comments, so I'm going to have to refer back to another document. So if you see questions that I'm answering that aren't actually in the text, maybe you guys can see them all. I can't, but that's the reason. All right, so let's go to... Here we go. Do you think it's strange that we haven't gotten more villain playable characters in Marvel Legendary? It seems like many of the major villains still aren't playable. Yeah, that's a very weird thing. I think that there was... I think that the Legendary villain set wasn't as well received as people would have liked. It wasn't by me. I mean, I liked it. It's like, all right, more content for Legendary, but I thought the whole thing with renaming them was really stupid, when really they should have just kept it all the same. And I think that you're seeing villains trickle into the game in other sets, like Thanos was in the Secret Wars Volume 1 set, and I think there was a few other ones I'm kind of blanking on right this second. So I think that's what you're going to see. If they're going to do them, but they're just going to kind of trickle them out, and yeah, they still need to do some of the major ones, but I don't know. Maybe they'll do another villain. They should just do another villain set that's just a smaller set, like a Secret Wars size set. We'll see. Hey, I'll take any more Legendary, honestly. Hey Nick, whatever happened to Dawn Rise of the Oculites? Is it still in your collection? It is not in my collection. I liked the game. I thought it was very neat. I thought it was a beautiful game. I mean, it was really high quality miniatures. I had the painted miniature set that was sent to me for review. All of these different things. But ultimately, for me, it was just a game that was not going to hit the table very much. It was a huge box. It was taking up a lot of space, which sounds like a really superficial reason, but it's a thing. You weigh all these things together. So not going to play it that much. Just an okay game for me. And box that was just too huge and too cumbersome, and it just wasn't going to be for me. As I said in my review, I think people who are into miniature skirmish games, who want something more entry level to play, and who just want the hobby aspect of the hobbycraft aspect of seeing really cool miniatures, would get more of a kick out of it. And I hope that is why most people are interested in it. Hey Nick, how's your Besieged review going? Did you try the new frequently asked questions difficulty levels? Well, what he's referring to there is that, and I'll tell you this up front, and I'll say this in my review as well in the interest of full disclosure. So I did my unboxing video of Besieged back on Sunday. And in the video, in my little intro where I talk for far too long about nothing, I alluded to the fact that there had already been some negative reviews from some prominent reviewers, and I said, well, it doesn't really mean anything. It could be anything. It could just be whatever. Well, the design team, not the Call Me or Not team, but the design house that worked with Call Me or Not for the game, contacted me and said, hey, listen, we've seen some feedback on the game. We are putting out a frequently asked questions a FAQ, and we're putting out some altered rules, and we'd like you to hold off on your review if you can. And this is always a tricky sort of ethical thing. I should review the game that I have, right? So what I'm going to do, and what I've already partially done, is I've played the game solo with the rules as written in the book, what I got out of the box. And then I'm going to play it with my group, or not with my group. I canceled my group for tonight, but I'm meeting with just a couple of people because there wasn't a lot of interest in the full group tonight. But I'm going to play it with other people with the new revisions and see how it goes. And I'm not going to say anything about it now. And I think I'm going to compare the two versions, quote unquote, and see like what changed and what's for the better and what works better. And I think it's just a fair way to go about it. It does suck. I mean, It's kind of like that thing that people are always scared that video games are going to start. The video game mentality of a lot of video game publishers is going to start creeping into board games, where it's like we release a game and then we patch it, which sucks. But I want to be open-minded about it, and I also want to be fair to you guys, knowing that hey, I mean, if my review of the game ends up being positive, it may be me recommending the game, but also recommending, hey, as soon as you get this game, you should go download this file. So we'll just handle it like that and see how it goes. Do you get along with the guy who does drive-through review? His name is Joel Eady. He's mentioned you before, and he doesn't seem hostile. Well, I mean, most reviewers go around brandishing knives at me, and that just doesn't really move the conversation along. No, I like Joel. We subscribe to each other's channel, and we've interacted over email. We've contacted each other via email. Very nice, very friendly. We've never interacted other than that. I mean, I don't go to conventions or anything, and he lives in, I'm not even sure where he lives, but he lives out of state. So we've never run into each other or talked on the phone or anything. But yeah, he's a nice guy. I have a lot of respect for him. I like his channel. I think he does a really good job. He's doing the whole lone wolf thing like I am, and I totally appreciate that. So yeah, I don't have a problem with him. I don't know where the hostile thing comes from, but there you go. Let's see. And okay, well, this is not anything to do with drive-through review, but I'll just throw this out here because just to let you know, there is no ill will or enmity between me and Rado. That is done. I'll leave it at that. I had a brief email conversation with him. It's over. So let's put the kibosh on that. I've always had a lot of respect for Rado. It was just some stupid thing that went on between the two of us and me shooting my mouth off in a public forum. It's over. So I hope we can all put that to rest. That would be great. Do you have a Zoolander blue steel look? I don't even understand the reference. I've never even seen the first Zoolander, and the second one is getting such bad reviews that I never will. Xenoshift is having Legion, which is a company, I guess, print Xenoshift sleeves. I think the waves 1 through 3 look plain. Any thoughts on the sleeves? No. Sorry, I'm not really keeping up on that. I don't sleeve a lot of my games. Xenoshift, if I played it more often, which I play it very rarely. I got a bunch of new expansions I want to try, the little mini expansions, but if I played it more often, I'd sleeve it, and I might have an opinion, but I don't. Greetings from Serbia. Greetings. That's cool. New country. Maybe it was you that said that last time though. Medieval Academy or Treasure Hunter, and why? Not to do a cop-out thing here, they're very different. And I understand they're both card drafting, so they're the same in that regard, but how that card drafting is implemented, it feels and looks different. Like Medieval Academy, you're kind of like racing to a degree on these tracks, and Treasure Hunter, it's just this weird high-low trick-taking type thing. I guess they do fit the same broad category. They still feel different to me. I think it's a matter of this. I don't know. I don't think you can choose that. I think if you like one or the other, you'll like the other. But for me personally, I might go Medieval Academy just because it feels a little more unique, but I think the production values are better for Treasure Hunter. and Treasure Hunter is more accessible. So this is like a 6 of one, half dozen of another thing. It's just going to matter what appeals to you. All right, that is all the questions that were eaten by YouTube for me personally earlier. So let's get back to what's here in the list, which actually did start with that first one that I just mentioned. Hey Nick, have you played Agricola? All creatures big and small, I think is what that is. And would you recommend buying first, second, or both expansions? What do you have? Do you have any recommendations for 2-player games that play up to 30 minutes? Thanks. I have played Agricola. It's okay. Not my bag. I'm kind of hoping eventually I do have Caverna. Hopefully I'll actually get a chance to play it before the apocalypse. Probably not. It's in board gaming purgatory. And I'm hoping it's a little bit better for me. I thought Agricola, while very well designed, Agricola falls into that Twilight Struggle category for me. I recognize it as a solid design. I understand why people love it. Too dry for me, and just not quite my style. That's why I'm hoping Caverna maybe is a little better for me, but it may end up being the same. So I can't really comment on, or maybe I don't know, is All Creatures Big and Small like significantly different? I don't know. Maybe you're asking specifically about that. I've never played that one at all, but I've heard it's kind of the same thing, right? Do you have any recommendations for any 2-player games that play up to 30 minutes? I mean, Seven Wonders Duel is the new hot one, and I think it's a good game. It's not one of my favorite 2 players, but I would recommend that. BattleCon, there's all kinds of fighting games like BattleCon, Yomi, and Pixel Tactics, which are pretty interesting and play up to 30 minutes, I would say. They could, when you get it under your belt. What else? Oh, there's a lot of stuff. But those are some good... I mean, if you want cooperative stuff like Hanabi. It's been a while, but any thoughts on Arcadia Quest Inferno, and is it worth the late pledge? Well, it's worth the late pledge if you like Arcadia Quest. That's the benefit of a sequel to a game, is that a lot of people... the first version of the game is already out in the wind, and people can either, if they've played it themselves, they can make a conscious judgment about it, or they can read a ton of reviews. And for Arcadia Quest especially, there's buku information you can get. Read the comments on Board Game Geek, read the actual written reviews, watch the video reviews. I've done one, Vassal's done one. I'm sure many people have done one. I'm sure Joel's done one. So you've got a lot of information out there. I can't really answer the question for you other than that, because it's just going to matter what your play style is. Do you like combative, PvP, fantasy miniatures? Campaign mode is a big part of the game. Not necessarily, you don't have to do it, but you could. So yeah, just figure out if it's right for you. Because Arcadia Quest Inferno, while it is different, there's like some new, there's like angel things you can interact with, and new monsters, and there's new campaign stuff. There's new expansions like a pet expansion and dragon expansion, so on and so forth. Still, the core of the game is the same. So if you don't like the original, you're probably not going to like this one. What would you do if all the board games in the world just disappeared? Go back to playing video games? Just finally play Fallout 4? What would you do if all the beagles in the world just disappeared? That would be much more upsetting. Board games are just physical things, but I love my dogs and they're beagles. I would be very, very sad and then go to a shelter and adopt some other dog after a while, after mourning for enough time. Okay. Whew. This question I'm going to have to parse out because this is not the best. Okay. Has the community for a game been so... I'm gonna parse this out and hope I'm right in this. Has been so toxic that it turned you off of a game? Wait a minute. What? Okay, I'll read this because I'll indulge this. I picked up Memoir 44 and hated it. It felt like 100% luck. I had played many games where my men stood there and died. The forums claimed that M44 was the most realistic game. Memoir 44 was the most realistic game they have played that emulated a battlefield. Me being ex-military tried to explain that in no way is anything about the game realistic. Picked up Battlelore and loved everything about it. It fixed all my complaints. And then had a massive argument about... I'm kind of paraphrasing here. But, okay. Let me answer your question. To your point, and I'm not going to comment on that. I don't like Memoir 44, and I haven't played it enough to make a thorough review or commentary on it, so I'll just sit that one out. But to your point, which I think is an interesting question, has the community of a game ever been so toxic that it's turned me off? not the game itself. A game is a game. A designer throws that out there, and maybe they're trying to make a statement or whatever the case may be, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to hate it just because other people are douchebags about it. So the game is the game. Now, I have been turned off by the community around it to the point where I won't interact with that part of the community anymore, and I won't go on those forums. I think that Cthulhu Wars is a good example of that. I put out a review of a game that I thought was, okay, it's a decent game. I see why people like it. It's very nice looking. I just don't think it's all that. I think it's too expensive. I think Chaos in Your World does it better. And you would have thought that I completely trashed the game the way the community reacted. And that turned me off from ever interacting with that segment of the community, and especially the publishers and designers who went into the forums and egged people on yeah, tell this guy that he's wrong. So that really turned me off from them. But again, I really try to keep the game separate from whoever is involved with it or its fans, because that's ultimately what I'm here for, is to judge the game. On my Q&As, though, I will spout off about whatever. I have to go through the rest of the rambling about the question. But thank you very much, Quarantine, for your passion about it. Nick, since you play lots of Japanese import games, are there any games similar to something like Idolmaster? I have Idol Project, but that's more about a company as a whole. Well, what's the one that I have here that I still can't get to the table? I have, let me get to my other review here. This is 2 games in one, technically. It uses a lot of the same cards. It's Idol Conclave and Million Hit Charts. And I've only gone over one of them, which is the cooperative game, which can be played solo, which is, I can't remember which one is which. They're both kind of nominating idols and vetting them. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing. That idol thing is one of the aspects of anime that I'm not quite into. I've realized as time has gone on that for all the people who accuse me of being a creepy anime fan, where I'm at with the anime, or where I was at, is really there's starting to be a wide gulf between my taste in anime and what's actually being produced nowadays. I'm not into the whole moe thing. I don't get some slice of life stuff I like, but Lucky Star, but most of it I don't. And I don't get where everything has to be adorably cute now. And and this, idol stuff. I like the anime style, and that's why I dig these games. And they're always really neat and quirky, but as far as actual anime and sitting there and watching a half-hour show or a movie, I still like the old school stuff. If you look at my top 10 anime for my short-lived optional variant series, most of them were either stopped at the early 2000s. A lot of them were from the 90s. Some from the 80s. That's just how it was, like the Guyver. Well, the Guyver was made in my 11 through 20. I regret that. I really have some fond feelings for the Guyver. Hold on a second. I'm going through greeting comments. Nick, what Kickstarters are you looking forward to? Actually delivering? Conan, I think as time has gone on, I've become a little more excited about it. Conan for a while was just hey, this game is amazingly popular, and I should just get it. But I'm more excited about it as time has gone on and the anticipation has built. Arcadia Quest Inferno, the others. Of course, the Cool Mini or Not stuff I'm really excited about. Seventh Continent looks really interesting. The final version, I should say. I played the preview version. What else? Heart of Crowns starts on Tuesday. You can check out my review of that, which reminds me I have to get back to the, excuse me for wiping my nose, the design team or promotional team over at Japan Anime Games asked me if they could use my review on the front page. I will, of course, say yes. I have some hesitation about that because it was, number one, it was just on the cusp of me. I had my old camera, so it doesn't look that great. And it was in Movember of 2014, which means I have my porn stash What are you going to do? I don't want to refilm a review of it and then do another review when the final English version comes out, so I'm just stuck. I thought about doing a review of Fairy Garden, which is the first standalone expansion, but I'm not going to worry about it. So, excuse me. I don't know. My allergies kicked up right when I started. Even though I've been up for a few hours, my allergies just started right when I started the Q&A. Isn't that great? That's just my timing. Are you backing the Walking Dead or TMNT Kickstarters? No, to neither. Especially not the Walking Dead one. I get a lot of flack about this. People are like, why do you hate on Mantic Games so much? But all I can judge is what I see. And Walking Dead, was it All Out War, I think is the subtitle on that one, looks like junk. The miniatures are so ugly looking. So ugly. And from what I understand, what I've seen, maybe it's changed because I haven't checked in on the Kickstarter in like a week, but they have a paper boards. Like, really, for all that money, you're giving us paper boards. Maybe that's changed. I don't know. They didn't have a rule book out at the time, and the Kickstarter had already been going for days. And I really feel like they... And I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, when they do put out the rule book that it's just a Zombicide clone. Well, no, I know it's not going to be because I think it's fully competitive, right? Team versus team. But I don't know, man. Like, I have Dungeon Saga sitting here, and I know I should review it, but it's just like, it's so demoralizing because I know it's just a rip-off of Hero Quest. That's what I feel Mantic is. Mantic puts out incredibly ugly, low-quality miniatures and seems to just rip off other people's designs. Everyone gets influenced by everything, I know, and Tanto Cuore is just based on Dominion, so don't be a hypocrite, Nick. But I don't know that they've ever had an original idea, and that's just, I don't know why people buy into it. As far as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles things go, that's a theme that appeals more to me, and I would be interested in it, and it's based off the old comics, so I'm like, okay. I am hesitant because it's IDW, and I'm sorry, IDW Games, Pandasaurus, by the way, is fine before they were bought out or combined with IDW. Pandasaurus had Yido, which is a great game. I love it. It's in my collection. It made my top 100. They did Tammany Hall, which I haven't played, but is incredibly well regarded. And then they combined with IDW and started putting out really mediocre crap. Some of it is legit bad. Most of it is just not even worth mentioning. Like Chew and Awesome Tower was okay. I think I gave that a positive review, barely. Machi Koro, they really bungled that whole translation to North America. I know it's popular, but there's a lot of things I was unhappy with the release. What else? Orphan Black, the card game. So much mediocre junk that they've put out, and now they're doing this, and I'm like, well, that looks great, but I know the company is coming from. And they're touting the fact that the designer is Kevin Wilson. Now, Kevin Wilson, I've met. He's a nice guy. Well, I haven't met him personally, but I think I interacted with him online. He's a very nice guy. He seems like a nice guy. He has worked on games in the past, like his game Doom, the board game, turned into Descent as we know it, which is great. And he was part of the second Netrunner, like 2011 or 2012 edition design team. But he has done some of these games for IDW, which are just like Chew, and he did Android, which was a huge disappointment for me. Like I think it was my number one most disappointing game. So I don't think that he's like a AAA designer, and so I'm not excited about it for those reasons. I just can't be, and I want to be, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will be the one that like puts IDW on the map forever. I mean, they've made so much money, I guess it already has, regardless of what the game is actually like. But I fear that it may turn out to be just like how Ghostbusters was for Cryptozoic, which was just like, make a ton of money based off of a license and release a game that some people seem to like, but that makes no splash whatsoever and will not make it onto anyone's top 100 games list. We'll see. Let's see, where are we at? Do you have any interesting creepy animes you could recommend? Not like ghosts and monsters, but more on the realistic side, like serial killers, mad scientists. Well, I never finished it, although I still want to someday, but there's an anime and manga called Monster, which the premise alone is very, very fascinating. I've watched maybe like 6 episodes of it. Maybe a little bit more than that. But the premise is that there is this doctor, I can't remember the names, don't worry about that. There's a doctor I think he was living in Germany in the time, and the show takes place in like maybe the 80s in the flashback sequences. And he was a very, very popular surgeon. He's got like this hot wife, and his wife's father is like the chief executive officer of this hospital where he works, and everything seems to be going swimmingly for him. But he's a really moral and ethical guy. His wife's father, not so much. And there's a case where a famous politician, like the mayor of the city or something, comes in and is dying. And he is the only like neurosurgeon who can go and save him. But at the same time, first, before the mayor came in, there was a small child who was in a car accident who was also needed brain surgery. So the guy's like, well, listen, I have to go save this little kid. And, I mean, everyone deserves to be saved, but he's a kid and he got here first. And the chief executive of the hospital is like, no, he's the biggest donor to our hospital and you need to go save him. If you don't, your career is over. So he goes and he says, look, this is the right thing to do. He goes and he saves the kid anyways. And the mayor, I think, dies. And sure enough, his reputation is ruined. His wife leaves him. But eventually, everything is fine. He keeps being a doctor elsewhere, and everything is cool. Well, come to discover, as time goes on, fast forward, the kid grows up and becomes a murderer. He becomes like a serial killer. And now this doctor is like, feels this tremendous guilt and pressure weighing on him, and there's other things going on, like a conspiracy type thing, and that's what I didn't quite get into yet, but it's a very interesting premise, so I would recommend that. It's the first one I thought of when I saw your question. Nick, as I've said a while ago, I am a starting reviewer for video games and board games. How do you stay motivated to do them? It's been like 5 months since I uploaded anything. It's tough. A lot of times, for me personally, maybe that's not the same thing for you or for anyone else, but I see other reviewers putting out a ton of content, and I'm like, oh man, I feel so overwhelmed by not being able to do anything. And I realize that the thing is, a lot of the most popular reviewers are popular and have such great content because, and this is no fault against them, but it's just the fact, they do this full time. They have that advantage, and the rest of us don't have that advantage. So we have to work it in where we can. I'm probably a little more obsessed about it than most other people. I don't have a wife or a girlfriend right this moment. I don't have children. I don't have any other responsibilities other than taking care of my dog, and I have my full-time job. And so I try to work it in where I can. And I think that's the thing. And you have to come to that conclusion on your own. How much effort are you willing to put into it? If you are really worried about it, pace yourself. Commit yourself to doing one video every 2 weeks. Then see if you can do one every week. And maybe that's where you're going to rest. You know, Red Letter Media is probably my favorite non-board gaming YouTube channel right now. It is my favorite. They just put out a Wheel of the Worst episode yesterday, and it's amazing. I was so excited. But that was their first video in like 3 weeks. And even before that, their videos were just like trailers for Space Cop, the movie that they made that finally came out on Blu-ray. And I realized that they didn't lose subscribers, and they're still going to be very popular because people were like, they expect that you have to wait for really quality content. And it's a little bit different with board games because it is just such a voracious thing that you have to keep reviewing and reviewing and reviewing and reviewing. But I wouldn't feel that pressured about it. And ultimately, if you are feeling pressure about it, you need to kind of take a step back and realize, is this because I'm doing it because I feel pressure to do it, or am I doing it because it's fun for me? But pace yourself and see what you can handle. Motivate yourself to do one every couple of weeks, one every few weeks. Then lower that time gap and see how it works for you. Nick, what was your favorite game you played in January? In January? Well, let's look. If I had a favorite game I played in January, I would have reviewed it. I didn't do much in the way of reviews, that's for sure. Let's see what we got here. Honto Quarry Oktoberfest was very good. Well, I didn't do much last month, did I? I will give the props to Terra Mystica. I liked Terra Mystica quite a bit. More than I thought that I would. Put it that way. Have you burned Healthy Heart Hospital yet? I really didn't. I didn't hate the game. I just did not like it. It didn't work for me at all. I think it has found a very nice and welcoming home because, as I said in the review, I know there's people who will adore the game. Have you tried subscription board game services like Battle Bin or Board Game Bento? No, I haven't, but understand that it holds no appeal for me because I have the amount of unplayed games that I have, and I'm not bragging about it at this point because it's just sad, is ridiculous. So it's overwhelming. I hate looking at it at this point because I feel so much pressure to play them. This is what I was talking about, pressure. But so that service has no appeal to me. If you're someone who is just getting into board gaming and you have a very small selection and money is a factor, and you really, really want to play games first to know how you should spend your hard-earned money, I can understand the appeal of those services. I still can't outright recommend them because I don't know how well that they work, and I don't know what their actual business model and plans and services and how much they cost are like, and what's the cost to benefit ratio. But I think is the target audience, and I'm just not that. Nick, what's your favorite lewd Japanese game? I don't even know what that means as far as lewd. None of the ones I play are really lewd. People make those, I guess. But I don't like Barbarossa that much, but that's probably the most lewd one that I have. Also, Japanime Games is importing Heart of Crown. How happy are you? As I just mentioned, I'm very happy about it. I think it's a great game, and I want more people to play it. Someone says they were playing a scary game called Space Beast Terror Fright, and I started doing my Q&A right in the middle of him playing it, and it scared him. What is that game? Oh, I'm curious. Space Beast Terror Fright. Huh. I don't know. It's got good reviews. I'll check it out later, I guess. I like scary games. Like, I played a little bit of that, the hell is the name of that game? I can't remember the name of it. It's like a survival horror first-person game, but very minimalistic. Like, you're just going through some creepy mansion, and you're being chased by things, but you don't really see them. And if you go into the light, everything's okay, and you have to hide from them. Amnesia. That's what it was, yeah. Hey, Nick, have you backed any Kickstarter projects this year? If yes, which ones? I'm backing the Sentinels of the Multiverse Kickstarter. What else did I back this year? I feel like I backed a couple of things. Nemo's War, I think I backed. Yeah, a few. Definitely much less than I used to. I regret that I ever shared my Kickstarter profile with anyone because people read way too much into that. But I don't mind talking about it sometimes. Okay, I guess you're asking me which of these two things I prefer. A Euro game with Ameritrashy elements or a Ameritrash game with Euro elements. So a Euro game with Ameritrashy elements being like having dice, randomness, chaos, or an Ameritrash game with Euro elements, which is no dice, randomness, more control. That's a 6 of one, half a dozen of another type thing. I like City of Iron and think it's very interesting. I like some Fantasy Flight games like Forbidden Stars, which are much more methodical, war-ish type games. I know war games are a different thing. Hey, are you still playing Shadows of Brimstone? Are you planning on buying add-ons for Shadows of Brimstone? I just bought a minecart pledge for $500 and would like to see a live play from you. Why'd you spend that money on that game instead of Kingdom Death Monster? I'm just asking. No, it's okay. You can do what you want to do. No, I actually got rid of the Shadows of Brimstone set that I had. All I had was the retail version of Swamps of Death? Yeah, the Swamps one. And I thought it was a good game. It's neat. I would say it's my second favorite of the Flying Frog games, although I have only like one other one, which is Conquest of Planet Earth, and that's the only one that I've kept. But yeah, I don't have Swamps of Death anymore. I just thought, like, listen, it's a campaign-style cooperative game. I've already got several of those. I don't get to play those as much as I want to. And it's a huge box. It just was taking up too much space. But I recognize that people like it. I also didn't like the miniatures that much and putting them together. And I'm like, if I'm committing to this, I'm going to have to, every set of it I get, I'm going to have to put together. And I didn't want to do that for a game that I just liked okay. Let's see. Hey Nick, I found myself interested in the Vinos Deluxe and Gallerist on Kickstarter. I believe I've heard you share thoughts on Eagle-Gryphon. Can you expound? I don't know what thoughts I shared. I don't have any pertinent thoughts about Eagle-Gryphon. Eagle-Gryphon puts out a lot of games that I'm not particularly interested in because they do a lot of heavy Euro games or very small, light card games, which are very give and take for me. And I don't have a particular interest in the Gallerist or Vinos, so not quite my thing. I did have some strong thoughts on, was it Space Empires? Maybe. Star Empire, something like that, which was on Kickstarter maybe a month or two ago, a couple months ago. And I thought it just looked very lame. It was very, very derivative of Star Wars. They were clearly trying to ride the wave of the popularity of the new Star Wars Force Awakens. And I just thought, like, oh, really? It just looks lame. But that was a project in particular. Eagle-Gryphon as a whole, they're kind of an old school modern board game, if that sounds weird. But of hobby, hardcore board gaming people, Eagle-Gryphon is kind of like an emeritus company at this point, and they've got a lot of really beloved games. I don't think I own any of them, but not for any particular reason. Just not quite my thing. Surf or turf? Surf, I think. Yeah, overall. Here's a great question. Since your new review style takes a lot more work, does that mean smaller or less well-known games are less likely to be reviewed or have even less priority for you now? Well, regardless of my new review format, I still had reviews just piling up, right? This was a problem in mid to late last year going into this new year, regardless of my new format. And I think I've come to the conclusion that for me personally, not every game needs to be reviewed. First off, it's an impossible task. And second, there's a lot of other people doing reviews of all games. I mean, people who have tremendous amount of review output will cover all these like smaller, lesser known games. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do lesser known games. I'm going to do weirdo Japanese games like this. I've got a ton of these I'd love to do because I think they're quirky, and I think because a lot of other people aren't doing them, and whatever. Ultimately, what it comes down to, because I physically don't have the time to do every game, I am going to do the games that I'm interested in, genuinely interested, and I'm not going to do reviews of games that I'm just like, oh, other people might be interested in this. I want to do things that either I think are very interesting, or I played the game and I had interesting thoughts about it that I wanted to share, that I think was worth it for it, for the amount of time I was willing to spend. So I do think that there are reviews that maybe you would have seen from me before that are going to get cut, but it's not because I just don't have the time. It's because, I don't have the time and I should focus on things I'm legit interested in, because I think that makes for a better review, right? Like, I didn't like Takara Island or Healthy Heart Hospital, but they're very interesting games, and I think that I had some pertinent thoughts about it I really wanted to share. So, yeah, I think it's just me refining what I'm going to focus my time and effort on, basically. And it helps, too, because I'm like, it has kept me from wasting money on games, too. I'm late because I wanted to sit through the Burger King ad with Snoop Dogg. I forgive you. That's a legit reason. Hey, Nick, what do you think about the mentality of some Kickstarter projects that backers get their games at the very last, like Shadows of Brimstone? I don't totally understand that question. I guess you're saying that backers get their games at the very last, like Shadows of Brimstone. I don't know. Are you saying like Kickstarter projects that deliver after it goes to retail? I think that's a really shitty thing, but it just seems to happen sometimes. Sometimes it's out of their control. Hey, Nick, what's your favorite Magic the Gathering dual deck sets? Do you intend to do more reviews for those as they're coming out? I would have, but they just don't seem that particularly interesting to other people. I don't seem to really be that popular for my channel, and, ultimately, how much more can I say? Like, here's Magic the Gathering, and here's why I like this set. Here's another set. Here's why I like this one. It's not that great. But I thought doing the, what did I do? Elspeth versus Kiora dual decks was like my representative review for those. But maybe I'll break that in the future. In fact, I bought the Eldrazi versus Zendikar set, and I haven't even played it yet. But I like the dual decks. My favorite of them... really liked Dragons versus Knights, but maybe the Dragon deck's not great, but I really like that Knight deck a lot. What other ones? Well, I'm kind of racking my brain. There's so many of them. But Elspeth versus Kiora is very interesting too. It's like one of them is like kind of a landfall. Kiora's deck's kind of a landfall. Get lands out as quickly as possible to summon huge creatures. Elspeth is weenie, 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 as fast as you possibly can. A true white deck. What is the next game Fantasy Flight Games will reprint? Gears of War? No. Middle-earth Quest? Maybe. Mansions of Madness? Probably. Twilight Imperium? Or Battlestar Galactica? Well, let's be very clear here. When you say reprint, you mean just like, let's put this game back into print, meaning we'll just make more of the game. Then I think Twilight Imperium or Battlestar Galactica are the obvious ones. I think Twilight Imperium, while it probably doesn't sell anywhere near as well as it used to, because now it has the reputation of being an immensely heavy game, and board game is kind of drifting away from that, at least the mainstream segment of the gaming population. I think it still sells well enough perennially for them to do it. Battlestar Galactica, same exact thing. Battlestar Galactica, even more so. So yes, if Battlestar Galactica, you'll make no money. You'll make even money betting that will come back into print. Mansions of Madness, I think so. I think that will come back in print. The other ones, Gears of War, no, because Gears of War was been out of print for a long time, and it's based off of an IP that no one's playing anymore. When's the last time they did a Gears of War video game? I haven't played any of them, but I think it's been a while. Middle-earth Quest, a little more likely, but I think even FFG has other games that fit that box, that bucket that they'd rather focus on. Hey Thick. That's accurate. Hey Nick, thoughts on the new Sentinels of the Multiverse? I assume you mean the new Kickstarter. I think it looks amazing. I really and truly believe that. I did a whole big Facebook post about it. You can go and read that too. I was very critical of the last expansion for Sentinels of the Multiverse. I just reviewed it last week, which was Villains. And I was also critical about Vengeance, which was like 2 expansions ago. But I liked Wrath of the Cosmos, which was in between that. So I've been very give and take on Greater Than Games in their policies and how they produce their expansions. I was very, very critical of the Story War, the ill-fated Story War project they were going to do. But credit where credit is due. This expansion, Oblivion, aside from the name, is amazing. There's a bunch of new heroes, villains as heroes, which is what villains should have been, I think. There's new environments. They're unlocking more and more heroes, brand new heroes, not just villains or heroes based on villains. There's a new mechanic that seems very interesting where you're going through like challenges or quests, and they're giving you a shot to get a big box to hold all of your crap now, which is a great thing for me personally. And they're giving you a chance to get all the variant cards. Now, even when I had some of the promo cards, I never really used them, but it's nice that you can now just get them all and not have to worry about it and have the option. So I think they are doing the right thing here. I have my doubts that this is actually the end of Sentinels of the Multiverse. They keep saying, this is it. We're closing down the line. They may be closing out this universe or this storyline, but I think that the system and maybe even the name of the game will continue on in some fashion, because this is their biggest breadwinner, I think, as judged by how much the project has made. I mean, how much has it made at this point? But my point is, if it is the end, if it really is like no more Sentinels after this, I can say that they're ending it on a high note. So I am very, very pleased with it, and I'm glad that they are doing it in such a way. So 700, wow, that's pretty amazing. They're gonna hit 1 million. They were never ever betting on that. In fact, they stopped their they've already blown. Well, they're gonna blow through the $750,000 stretch goal, and they're going to go through the 1 million as well. And then I don't know what they're gonna do. Wow. Yeah, I'm kind of out of it. I haven't been keeping track of the stretch goals since early in the week. And they still have 27 days to go. That's insane. So yeah, I'm very, very happy for them. I've been critical of them in the past, but credit where credit is due. I think this is their bread and butter, and they're doing it well. It's a very good send-off. Let's see. What board games are you looking forward to through the coming years? Well, in a few years from now, there's going to be this great... Listen, I don't know. There's so many games coming out. There's expansions for Dead of Winter. There's Seafall coming out. You can look at my top 10 anticipated games for 2016, and that will give you, at least for this year, a good indication. The Star Wars Rebellion should be any month now. So, lots of stuff to look forward to. Have you played the I skipped the question, but we'll come back. Have you played the 1990 game Space Crusade? No, but from what I understand, it's very close to Space Hulk. So, Nick, what voice actors would play your dogs in a real-life or animated film? Oh, never. I would never allow that. But, I mean, they'd be funny female voice actors. So it'd be like someone like Kristen Wiig, and who's the chick from... Amy Schumer, something like that. But I don't like talking dog movies or talking animal anything movies. Unless it's a cartoon, I guess. Regarding Besieged again, why don't these things come out in development? Considering Cool Mini or Not is a small company, shouldn't they not have these issues? Isn't a small company, shouldn't they not have these issues? Don't do double negatives. I understand a small or new designer, but by now, come on. I get that. I don't know. I understand. I'm very torn on this. I'm not trying to defend Cool Mini or Not or Besieged, and I've certainly railed against lesser things for this, for sure. But I don't. And again, I don't have a full picture yet because I haven't played with the new rules. But I don't know that there's a magic bullet to kill everything, and sometimes. And by the way, I don't know that the overwhelming amount of people have said, this game is totally broken. I think that a few very vocal and well-known members of the board gaming community have talked out about the game and have heard it. It has hurt it, but I think it's a little premature to be saying, this game is a disaster. How could they not have known? I just don't think it's at that point yet. Though it is true that, for instance, most Cool Mini or Not games based purely on like Kickstarter excitement have like very high ratings. And Besieged, I'm looking at it right now, is sitting at a 7.2, which most games would kill for if it had been out for a very long time. So that is problematic. I mean, it's certainly in enough hands now that people could be making legit comments about it. But let's see what we got here. Lots of sixes. One person gave it a 4, and this is a very long comment. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just tiptoeing around it because I don't want to say anything right this second. I'd rather keep you in suspense for my review. But I think that you can't kill every single problem, and ultimately, a lot of times, you play test a game, and the playtesters come back with feedback, and you're like, well, that's great feedback, but this is the game that we want to produce, and you're telling us to change the entire game, and we don't want to do that. So they put a game out and hope that more people than not think that it's amazing. And that's apparently not working that well this time, but we will see. Was Flash better for you this week? Barry was a horrible hero and killed... Well, okay, spoilers. Okay, it's within a week, so I'm not going to say too much. But, yes, it was better. It is a known thing that everyone knows that they went to Earth 2 this week, and it was a lot more fun and more on track. What was bothering me about The Flash was that they focus, it really is annoying, they focus so much on the relationship with Patty, which was great. She was a very fun character, she was a very likable person, and a good character in the show, and Barry needed a love interest that wasn't, like, constantly pining away for Iris, okay? That whole thing with Iris just got so awkward, and I felt bad for both the character and the actress of Iris, because it's just, like, so dumb what they did with that character. Just, like, everyone else knows about my identity, but Iris can't, because reasons? And it was sad for me to see that Patty was supposed to be the resolution to that crap, and instead it ended up being the same thing. I can't tell Patty about my identity. Can't do it. It's protecting you, Patty. From what? Everyone else knows. You're putting her in more danger. You're putting her in more danger. And then she discovers your identity on her own, and you're still like, you're wrong. Why? So I was very happy to see that gone. I'm sorry that they just cut Patty out like she was a tumor, because I think the character and the actress deserve better than that. But maybe I don't know everything, and maybe the actress wanted to leave anyway, so they had to come up with some awkward way to get her out of the show. I don't know. But it was a return to, as you say, fun. To just forget all that and go back to being silly. And it was almost too jam-packed, this Earth 2 episode. But I'm very excited for next week's resolution, hopefully. With the market being oversaturated with Eurogames and Ameritrash, are Asian board games likely the third-party candidate of the board game election? First off, be aware that just, these are different things. Eurogames and Ameritrash are categories of gameplay. Asian board games is just a different route of publishing. And while I understand that many of them are quirky and have their own little idiosyncrasies to them, many of them still fall into those categories. I've played really kitschy race games that fall into the Ameritrash category, like Magical Athlete's an example of that, and there's one called World of Cocoon I have to finally sit down and get through the rules of. But I've played a lot of Euro games that would clearly are Euro games from Japan, like Jungle Rumble, this very light one. Minerva, which I didn't like, but it's a Euro game for sure. It's like a weirdo kind of Carcassonne type game. So it's just another style. It's kind of like a drama from a different country. It's still a drama, but it just has its own different feel to it. Is there anything we should know about you before we meet you in real life? No physical contact, right? I am the exact opposite. I am really touchy-feely and gropey No, I'm just kidding. All over the place. Very inappropriate. No. No, you can shake my hand. You can fist bump me if you like. I'm not averse to hugs as long as they don't linger. Keep your hands above the equator. We're fine. And trust me, that's for your own benefit. What else about me in real life? I'm a dork. I'm just a big dork, and I say awkward and embarrassing things trying to be funny. Seeing that you are a fan of the Guyver animated series, what did you think of the live-action movies? It's funny because I'm trying to think of... It's a chicken and the egg scenario. I think this is how it went down. So my mom and I, when I was a kid... we went to the video store every weekend. Like, hey, school's over, work's over, video store right after school. My mom would pick me up when we go to the video store, and we'd rent really horrible direct-to-video movies, right? Like the kind that they review on Best of the Worst all the time. And my mom had no concept of, oh, Nick's a kid, he probably shouldn't watch this R-rated movie, but whatever, who cares? And she'd just cover my eyes when titties were on the screen. And so the Guyver was one of those. The Guyver live-action movie with Mark Hamill. And I'd already knew, even at that age, that I loved movies with people in rubber suits, because I think I'd watched Ultraman and Inframan. I was like, yeah, it's amazing. I love it. And Godzilla and all that. So I really dug it. And then I think that year, that Christmas, my mom was at the video store looking for Christmas presents for me and saw the Guyver animated series. And logically, and she made the right call, like, you would love this, and got it for me. Again, not realizing that just because it's a cartoon doesn't mean that there's not people getting their arms ripped off, which is literally in the first episode of... Well, okay, wait, let's be very specific. A monster's arms are bent in such a way that they snap in half and bones break out with blood, and one guy's hands are ripped off while they're engaged in like a muscle lock. He just goes... But still, but looking back on it, the live-action movie and its sequel, Dark Hero, are not good movies by any stretch of the imagination. And the animated series is better. And then the new animated series, which they released in the early 2000s, is far superior than any of those. So, and the manga itself. So it's... I wouldn't go back and I wouldn't necessarily watch it. I've actually thought about purchasing the Guyver live-action movie and sending it to the Best of the Worst guys, but they probably have already seen it. What is your favorite anime-themed game? There's not a lot, is there? Like, strictly anime-based games, not just like this is done in an anime art style, in which case it would be Heart of Crown, because it's the highest on my top 100 list. See, people keep asking me why I don't do a top 10 of that, and that's because there's not a lot of fodder for a top 10. But off the top of my head, I'll just say Weiss Schwarz, because that's like directly based on many different anime, depending on what set you get. And it's a decent game. I need to review it at some point. What's the hardest lesson you've learned from backing a Kickstarter? If they aren't the same, what's the best lesson you've learned? They are the same, and it's this. Don't go against your better judgment. If you know that you don't like a game style, don't fall into the trap of backing it because it has nice miniatures or because it has nice artwork. I think I can't name a specific example, but I'm sure that's happened to me many a time where I backed a game because I'm like, oh, it's like anime based, or because it's got great miniatures, or I like the style, and I get the game and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't like this type of game. Why did I do this? That's the number one thing. When is Heart of Crown going up live on Kickstarter? They say the 16th, which I think is Tuesday. They've been late before, but it should be next week. Has a gamer ever thrown things at you or destroyed your property? At me personally, no. I'm the head of the group, and that would be a big no-no. I don't think they've ever destroyed my property either that I've known about. There's a very angry person in our group who once was playing Firefly, the board game, on another table and threw cards in someone's face and then stormed out, which was good because I would have thrown him out otherwise. But that was not involving me. What animes would you recommend to someone who has seen very few animes, if any? I think my top 10 list is a good place to start looking. Not that I'm the end-all, be-all of that, but most of the animes that I've put there are very user-friendly, especially my number one, which is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. That's a great one to start off with because it's got adventure, it's got some comedy, it's got a very good animation style, it's very high quality, very lots of sound and music, but definitely the newest version of it, which is Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is a reimagining of the original. Yeah, I would avoid very long series like Bleach or Naruto or even One Piece until you've kind of broken your cherry on smaller series that are more bite-sized and digestible. Tell you a full, complete story very quickly. But those are some good ones to start off with. And look around online. Figure out what you like. Do you like really dark series? Do you like lighter ones? You know, there's a lot to recommend depending on what you actually like. And there's a lot of websites that are good for that. Marvel or DC? I think this comes up every single week. And I'm just going to say it again. Marvel has a larger quantity of quality characters. DC has a few characters that are amazing. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. I played Eclipse and was pretty disappointed with TI3 being a better choice for me. Surprisingly, they're pretty different games. Eclipse is a Euro game with some combat. Twilight Imperium 3 is an epic war, interstellar war game, essentially. And it's the length of... I mean, Eclipses can be a long game, but I don't think in a game of Eclipse, even with a maximum player count, people who knew what they were doing would last longer than 4 hours. TI3, you'd be lucky if it ends in 4 hours, and that might be with the minimum amount of players. So, very, very different. Just, you got to do research on that one. And I haven't played Twilight Imperium, so I can't speak to that. Thoughts on Sentinels of the Multiverse? I already explained that a little bit ago. I know I'm behind on questions, that's why. If you could play time stories where the story goes back into real history, which mystery or adventure would you like to play through? Waterloo, punching Hitler, building the pyramids. Well, they're going to do a pyramid one. I don't know if it's going to be... I don't know how fantastical it's going to be, but I'm pretty interested in. Feudal Japan seems really interesting to me. What are some of your most surprising games you purchased? Meaning a game that you expected to be bad or mediocre that turned out to be really good and worth keeping. I'm sure I've got games like that. Magical Athlete I mentioned before, is one like that. I'm surprised by how much I like Shakespeare. I don't know. There's a lot. Bring Out Your Dead. Kingdom Death follows a story, doesn't it? Limited replayability? Not quite. That's the interesting thing. Kingdom Death kind of straddles the line between a finite story, but also just being replayable. It's infinitely replayable because you're constantly refining your tactics, and you're always dying and having to restart. The thing that is kind of spoilerish and that kind of affects your gameplay on further playthroughs is that there's random events that come up. So when you start playing the game, you don't just sit there and read the entire rulebook, because much of the rulebook is based on this event happens, flip to this page, that type of thing. So when you play it on future playthroughs, you're kind of like, oh, that kind of ruins a little bit of it, right? Because now there's no surprise. But that's not... Then you start to get to what the core of the game is, and that's playing different... going down different paths and exploring different play styles and changing how you want to set up your party and what equipment they use and, you know, what you choose to innovate. So, yes, on future replays, your excitement and surprise are severely downgraded, but then it just turns into a much more gameplay-centric game of, like, how do I want to play the most efficiently, and how do I want to format my party. So it's not a limited game in the sense of, like, definitely not like Pandemic Legacy or Time Stories. Super random question. Do you intend to, if it was really random, you'd have a list next to you and you would roll and see which, no, I know. Do you intend to grow your beard back? I think it looks really good on you and suits your overall look really well. Well, the problem is I need to lose weight. If I lose weight, I'll look better without the beard because I'll get rid of my stupid double chin and my whole face won't look like a giant ball placed on top of a neck slot. But no, there's two problems. Number one, I don't like maintaining my beard. It is a pain to shave all the time. When I just had a beard to maintain, I would just trim it every 4 or 5 days, maybe like once a week. But the bigger problem is my gray hair. I mean, I have a lot of gray on my head, which actually I use just for men to take care of that. But my beard was just like gray. Even when I get stubble now, after 2 days, I could see the gray. So that was a big problem for me. I'm not like that conceited and vain, obviously, but I am in that regard. I don't want to look like an old man yet. But thank you. I mean, I appreciate that you thought it looks better on me. 82 people watching. That's pretty cool. Are you looking forward to any new Games Workshop reprints? No. I've heard really good things about Necromunda for a long time. Even before I was into board games, people were recommending it to me, so that would be cool, but I don't know. What third-party comic book company would you like to see more games themed off of? Image, Dark Horse, Oni Press. Image, because Image had a lot of really interesting things like The Sword. Hello from Poland. Well, hello. I like hearing from international people. Thank you for watching. When is City of Iron 2nd Edition going to be available for retail? I have no idea. I honestly don't. I wasn't keeping up with that. I didn't back it on Kickstarter. It kind of like pissed me off because I'm like, this feels like a full game. Why are we getting a second edition of it so soon? And he's changing just enough of it to make you need to buy the new one. Whatever. How easy was it to run End of the World Zombies? Did you like running it? Yeah, I had fun doing it. I think I rather would have been a player. It's very easy. I mean, if you're an actual, like, competent GM, like you should be, you'd have a whole storyline set up ahead of time. But I was running late, as I usually am, and had nothing prepared. So I just showed up with the book and started filming and said, I'll just make it up as I go along. And everyone seemed to have fun. But that's not for everybody. When are you going to Europe to meet your fans? Hopefully one day. I'd love to go to Europe. I really would. I have no interest in conventions as a whole. I've always said, like, I want to go to Gen Con just to get all the new games and then get the hell out and go home. You know, but after meeting some fans, which would be really cool. But I would love to go to Essen for the express purpose of visiting Germany and meeting some fans. That'd be very cool. Guys, if I don't like read your comments, it's not because I don't read it. I just don't read it out loud. But thank you. Silliness. There are a lot of reviews that agree with you about Mission Red Planet. That's interesting. I really thought I was an outlier there. Where were all these reviews before the reprint? I don't know. Here's the problem. The game was out of print. No one cared about it. the Dice Tower, because all 3 of the hosts happen to love it, pumped the game constantly all the time and created sort of an artificial demand for it. And my point was always, I don't really think this is that great a game, and I think it probably went out of print for a reason, because you might say, like, oh, well, why did HeroScape go out of print? Well, HeroScape, while there was a lot of people that loved it, was incredibly expensive to make and a very, very big deal, and there was some publishing issues where Wizards of the Coast got purchased by Hasbro, and Hasbro wanted to focus on their D&D products and things like that. All these things conspired to kill HeroScape, right? And that when you could say, well, a good game literally just died because of circumstances. Mission Red Planet is not a very expensive game. It never was. It wasn't like this uberly difficult thing to produce, and it wasn't a game that had any kind of like controversy surrounding it. It was from a well-known designer then and now, and no one was buying it, and that's why it went out of print. And people don't seem to understand that. Like, just because there's I don't know. There's a lot more I could say, but I'm not going to. But the point of the matter is there was an artificial demand for it, and people just don't understand. And I don't think it's selling very well. It's not blowing up in popularity, even with the makeover, because it's just not a great game for me, and I think for a lot of other people. But now, hopefully, people will be a little more hesitant about like resurrecting games that died for a reason in the first place. Do you like the live action? Wow, this guy's asking questions that I've already answered, but the live action Guyver. Rewatch the Q&A. I talk about it more at length earlier. Have you given any... I just bought and played the Queen's Gambit. I love it. Found your playthrough very helpful with your friends. Be very cautious with that because we made some very serious rules mistakes. That was our first playthrough, legitimately so. But have you given any thought to a full review of the Queen's Gambit? Eventually I will. It's just not on my rush. I should have done it when Star Wars came out to capitalize on that, but it's tough to justify reviewing a game that no one can purchase easily, you know? I do it for the little Japanese games in the hope that they will be reprinted nationwide, but no one's reprinting the Queen's Gambit. That's another example of a good game that got killed by circumstances. Have you tried the Space Team app, which the board game is based off of? It's free and much better than the board game version. I have not, but maybe eventually I will. Is the Heart of Crown Kickstarter going to include all the expansions up to date? I don't know that it will include any expansions. If they do it like they did like Barbarossa, there wasn't really much of anything. There was just some promo cards. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask them that when I respond to their question about using my review. I may still not be able to tell you guys ahead of time. I always try to be very open and honest when I find out news about publishers and things like that. But if people want to embargo something, I respect that. So that's why I had the information about the Darkest Night Kickstarter and reimagining second edition. I had that news for a few weeks now, but they asked me to embargo it until Thursday, which I did. So I always try to respect them like that. Like, so maybe Japanime Games wants to keep it a secret what they're actually planning on doing. Oh my goodness, it's 1:08. Guys, I got to wrap this up. I'm really sorry. But I'll answer a few more. Do you ever peruse the Game Crafter? I'm kind of, I've got some controversial thoughts about the Game Crafter if you want me to share. So, a couple of times now, this has happened twice, and it just happened again this past week. I've gotten a request from someone to review their game. And I always say, okay, well, is this a prototype game? Is it a game that's coming to Kickstarter? Because if it is, I don't review prototypes, and I don't review Kickstarter games. I will do a paid preview for those, and then later on, if you want to send me the full and final published version, I would be very happy to do a full review of it, not paid, my final opinion. But I cannot review a prototype. And I've had a couple people now say, no, full published version. It's the done version of the game. And I take them at their word. I say, okay, you send it to me. I'll take a look at it. And what do you think I get in the mail? I get a nondescript box from the Game Crafter with the game in it, to which I have to respectfully email the people back and say, there was some confusion here. I asked you very specifically if the game was a published game. You said yes, but this is a game crafter game. It's not a published game. And the first time that happened, the guy was offended and was like, what are you talking about? This is my published game. It's gotten good feedback, and I spent a lot of effort and work on it. I'm like, yes, but anyone can publish a game through the Game Crafter. Anyone can do it. That's the point of the Game Crafter. It's like Arts Cow. And so I do not peruse Game Crafter because I have zero interest in unpublished prototype games. Other people feel differently. I know that a friend of mine named Kevin, who runs the cooperative games list over on Board Game Geek, is a fan of Game Crafter and has found some games that he really enjoys there. I have no patience for it. So I'm not a fan, and I'm going to have, now it's forcing me to be very, very specific from here on out about what I will consider reviewing, because I will never review a Game Crafter only published game. Oh, he says, Doug, do you think the $399 for everything pledge for Sentinels of the Multiverse is worth it? And it said, oh, excuse me, do you think? I think it's worth it if you literally want everything. It's better than purchasing everything on its own. But that's a big leap. If you're going from 0 to to everything, or maybe you've only bought the base game, then it still might be worth it, but it's a lot of money to plunk down. But I will say that it's a ton of content. So again, if you know that you like the game, I think it's worth it. Have you ever had any shipping nightmare stories, like your games were dented or smashed beyond usage? Not to that point. I did have a publisher send me several of their games to review from some European country, and the box was complete. They didn't put it in a box. It was coming from overseas, and they decided to just wrap it in bubble wrap and brown packing paper. And of course, everything was smashed. Luckily, it didn't actually harm the components. Well, let me show you, just real quick. I would say this isn't even the most extreme example, because there were smaller ones that were much more damaged relative to their size. But this one, can you tell even? It's kind of hard to see, but it's completely bashed in. I guess it's not really showing up very well on camera. The sides ripped open, things like that. Smaller games didn't really fare as well. But the games are still playable, so it's not really going to hurt my opinion of them. I once sent a bunch of books to myself when I was moving. A huge box full of RPG books. You can see where this is going. The box burst open and I lost them all. That was upsetting. Hundreds of dollars worth of books. Do you like beer? If so, which ones? I more like hard ciders, but I like Blue Moon. I kind of got a taste for that. That's the thing about beer. I think you just get used to it. I like Blue Moons. I like Shock Tops. Have you ever watched the old BBC series Sapphire and Steel? I've never even heard of that. Is the extra stuff for Above and Below Expanded Edition ever going to be available for retail? He says it's exclusive. If he keeps to that, I would say no. But I don't think it's that overwhelmingly good that you need it. Do you read? If so, what? Rule books? I used to read so much, like a book a week, and now I don't. I'm really sad about that, to be honest. I feel stupid. Have you ever thought of doing unboxing videos for subscription boxes? I did one for Loot Crate and got so much negative feedback, I said no. Because everyone does it, apparently. What do you think of the new upcoming Dead of Winter standalone expansion? I'm not really sure I'm keen on it being standalone, but you know, I'd rather just do a new standalone Crossroads game. But I can understand why they are, because it's a huge seller for them. But I'm excited for it. Any thoughts on the Golem Arcana shutdown? I got a bunch at 50% off and think the game is amazing. You ever try it? Shutdown? They just stopped producing it? I don't know the story on that. Sorry. But I never tried it. Never had much interest for me. Like, I barely have the time to play any miniatures-based games. Like, Die Hard miniatures games, and one with an app didn't interest me. Are you hyped for the new Star Trek series for 2017? I'm hopeful it's good, man. I really hope they turn that franchise around. What was the last board game accessory that you printed for yourself? I printed out some homebrewed character sheets and innovation sheets for Kingdom Death Monster. The Kingdom Death Monster community has made some amazing stuff. I wish I knew their names specifically to plug them. Hey Nick, what was that yellow toy figurine that dangled from your top shelf? That is... what's his name? Tim Campy, which is the little homunculi that, what's his name? Is that going to stay? It won't stay. Look at that, it stayed. That's Alan... Oh, man, it's been a while since I watched that show. What is his name? Alan Walker. The lead character of D. Greyman had this little homunculi that was used for communication and had as most heroes in these anime do, his head was different and had a personality and ate food that he never seemed to poop out. It was very weird. But I bought that at like a Hot Topic or something. I really liked it years and years ago. What's your thought on getting Kingdom Death Monster expansions? Do you think it adds a lot to the game? If you love the game, they're going to be essential, I think, because they're going to really expand the game, especially the Lantern Festival expansion, which makes the game playable after year 25. How's your review of Besieged going so far? Well, I haven't filmed any of it. I still need to play it more. Go back to the very beginning of the Q&A, and you can hear more thoughts on that. What are your future top 10s going to be about? My off-delayed solo list will be coming out. I'll figure something else out. I still have to think about it. The new version of Runebound looks to me like they picked the cheap option at every stage. Do you agree? I can't judge that because I didn't play the previous versions. I know, as I mentioned in my review, that I wish they had more villains, more scenarios, essentially. That I felt that they cheaped out on, and perhaps more heroes would have been good. I just feel like that's FFG doing their expansion thing, which I don't like necessarily, but I understand. If it was a Kickstarter game, you'd have a ton of stuff. Sorry guys, I'm just kind of cherry picking some questions I really like because I really want to wrap this up. Do you have a status report on Valley Games? I don't know, but what does this mean for Upfront? What was your biggest Kickstarter disappointment? Probably 12 Realms. It's one of the very first ones I backed, and I backed it for a decent amount of money, like over $100, and really, really excited about it. It was one of the Kickstarters. I was involved with Kingdom Death Monster every single day as it was running, but that was this huge spectacle that everyone was involved in, right? And it was already funded by the time I hopped on, so it was just a matter of what stretch goals do we get next. For 12 Realms, it did fund, but it was we were lurching towards each stretch goal, and we were trying to get the hype built up, and all of us were very excited for it, and it turned out to be just a very mediocre game at best. Best superhero board game, Marvel Legendary. Thoughts on the Joking Hazard Kickstarter? Never heard of it. I'm kind of out of Kickstarter at the moment. And let's look at let's find a last good question. I'll judge you guys. Sorry, I'm looking for one last question. All right, we'll just end with this. What is your favorite Ryan Lockett game? My favorite of his games, I'm probably going to contradict myself because you can actually probably look at my top 100 list and figure it out. But I'm going to say for right now that it is above and below. I really like that. But we'll see how things go. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. We went on for an hour and 20 minutes because I was on time for once, but that's okay. Guys, listen, thank you so much. I'm very, very, very sorry that my output has been so terrible. But I try my best, and I hope that you guys keep watching. I hope that I am not allergic to any food. I just saw that question pop up. I hope that you guys keep watching. I really enjoy the Q&As. I love interacting with all of you. This is a very fun part of the week for me, and so I hope that you guys enjoy it as well. We seem to be getting a very consistent high amount of people, which I'm very happy about, so thank you so much for that. I will do my best to get out some really cool reviews. I won't even say what's coming up because that can change at the drop of a hat, but there will definitely be some stuff and some previews coming out for some interesting looking games, so please stay tuned. And as always, just have a wonderful weekend. Seriously, take a load off, relax, play some games, or don't. Watch some cool movies. Deadpool was pretty cool. I recommend that. So have a great one. Thank you. Oh, happy Valentine's Day. Hug a loved one. Hug everybody, even if they tell you to stop. Okay, don't do that.